All right, we're back.
And we have a movie or something? Isn't there like something on this ride at the beginning?
No movie, no ride. You are carrying this completely on your shoulders. It's 100% you.
God. I thought we'd have dancing or putting on the Ritz, but Fred Astaire or something.
No, man. Nope. It's all you. You can get up and dance, man. Everybody dig
Fred Astaire, you know, I think he probably went to the custom shop. It's one of the guys. You showed me a picture of Fred Astaire. I thought he was involved in this for some reason.
Oh, I don't even remember. I think he was used in their advertising, and I was just looking up stuff that they were doing. Like, oh, they did this as an ad. All right. I didn't bring it to the show because you gave me that kind of, okay, I don't know what that's about.
Oh, well, a lot of times I don't know what it's about, but don't use me as a gauge. I'm really spaced out. Okay, so what are we doing today? What's the deal?
Okay, what we are not...
you tell me what are we supposed to talk about? I'm completely baffled at this point.
We are not doing LBJ today. Yeah, we need a little bit more time to prep everything. It was pretty ambitious to say, yeah, we're just going to do it, but soon, probably next Tuesday or a Friday. I don't know which, but we may not do a show Friday. I don't know.
Okay,
we don't have that.
Tough guy, huh? All of a sudden, no show.
I don't know yet. You know, I don't know if Alec's doing anything. I don't know what's going on, but oh, look at this. Somebody worked for the custom shop.
See that right away? They're in. Everybody knows the custom shop, Eric, except you.
And look at that name, because what is it? Sheriff Lavash.
Okay.
Well, you were talking about all the different nationalities. That's something you.
Oh, well, that was that one store. You know, just to explain this story a little bit better. When Reagan became president, that was the end of Jimmy Carter. Just to pick up where we left off with Sonora House on episode 39, whatever that number was last week. I don't know the numbers. But when Reagan defeated Carter, that was the end of the CETA program. And that was the end of our grant, which means we had to go out into the world and fend for ourselves from our miniature socialist art society, where we had been in the womb for 4 years.
No, wait. What did you call this? You said I had to get a straight job. I think
straight job. Well, that's what everybody says in show business anyway. That's a straight job. So I got a straight job working at a ski resort. There were ski resorts, and that was Windham Mountain. That was one of them. I also worked at Hunter Mountain, which was a few miles down the road, much bigger. Hunter Mountain was a lodge. I used to run that ski shop in the lodge, and then this one I worked at this ski shop in this lodge. So this was a private club originally for very wealthy private patrons in Windham, which is about 7 miles outside of Hunter Mountain, which was near where Sonora House was. So this was a much smaller, less commercial operation and a lot more fun. But the reality of it was there was a ski shop in that lodge, and I worked in that ski shop, and there was a guy who used to be a member of the club, and he was an older man, and he showed up with a Rolls Royce. That was always a telltale sign. And he had a full-length fur coat, an old guy with a giant, and I want to say 15-inch diameter yellow smiley patch sewn into the back of his $100,000 fur coat. And he skied with the full-length fur coat with the smiley patch on his back. So everybody said, oh, look, there's Mortimer Levitt. And that was the guy's name, Mortimer Levitt. And he was the founder and creator of the Custom Shop, which was in 1937. He opened the first. There he is. Yeah, Levitt, Mortimer Levitt, multimillionaire. He had the idea of the strange idea. There was a custom clothier on the Lower East Side who made shirts for you for $1.50 if you brought your own fabric. So Levitt had the idea, like, who's going to carry around their own fabric who's a wealthy person and needs custom-made shirts? I am going to make the shirt the second you walk in, and I'll have the fabric, and you don't have to do anything except pay me. So in 1937, he opens up the first custom shop downtown in New York. Mm-hmm. And even in 1937, it did $100,000 the first year it was in business, which was huge for then. You know, if you could do the math of what that would mean. And he opens up a chain of these custom shops not only in New York, but also across the country later. And they were in every shopping mall in the country that was high end. You know, if there was a Bergdorf's, there was a custom shop. You know what I mean? Wherever they would go near certain other shops that were available at the time. Anyway, make a long story short, when I was working at Wyndham at the Mountain, Levitt took a liking to me. He thought I was funny, blah, blah, blah. And he said, if you ever come back to New York, look me up. I'll give you a job. So what do I know? You know, I go back to New York. I look him up. The guy gives me a job, right? So what's the job? The job is you got to go to school for 6 months. And the 6 months teaches you how to measure for custom-made clothing, how to dress yourself, all the history of fabric, clothing, the history of cotton, how to measure people for suits and ties and custom-made shirts. And okay, so hold that for 1 second, because I want you to take that off the screen for a second, and then I want you to put it back, because I'm going to explain this. We'll get to that right now. But in the school, you learned how to measure for shirts and suits, and there's a lot of parts. And one of the geniuses of Levitt was he hired or paid the Harvard Business School like $2 million to develop a giant binder of dialogue, actual scripts, sales scripts on how to sell shirts and clothing in his stores. And you had to memorize these scripts before you graduated from the 6-month program, which was upstairs in the main store, which was on 57th Street. It wasn't like you went to NYU or something. It was actually on the premises. And there would be like 8, people in it, or 6, whatever. And you went to this thing every day. So he hired paid, I'm not really understand how you can hire the Harvard Business School, but he paid like $2 million for them to develop these psychological scripts that would funnel the customer psychologically through dialogue and interchange into buying what you want them to buy, if that makes any sense, Eric.
Oh, God, yeah. They do it now. That's the stuff that Chase Hughes is teaching.
Right, okay.
Different sales. And, well, I mean, there's persuasive writing. I believe I've had Perry Smith on who does that. So, yeah, there's an entire field. It probably goes all the way back to Bernays in terms of how to psychologically, push people there. But you said one other part when you were telling me about it before that was fascinating, that people weren't actually getting custom shirts.
Right. That's where I was going with this, because what he was doing was funneling you down into the reductionism of the parts of the shirts that were limiting you in your choices. That was his genius. Because if it went the other way, people would say, yeah, I want a big S on the back of my shirt. I want the collar to stick out on the sides. But he saw that right away, that people are freaking nuts, that they would design their own shirts and it would cost him a fortune. And he had like a Henry Ford type assembly line. It wasn't custom made. That's what I was telling you. It was somebody sued him years later, went to court, and he had to change it from custom made to like custom tailored, or some word that wasn't custom made legally, to get out of legal trouble. So because what he was doing was reducing you down in your choices, right, and funneling you into what he wanted you to order, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. So you're literally talking about there were technically 10 available styles, or 5, or whatever it was. But I mean, honestly, even with a limited number of styles, it's still an almost infinite number of possibilities.
Yes, absolutely. The fabric book itself was huge. I mean, it was a big, thick book of fabrics. You got to pick out your fabrics. So you got the appearance that you were working with the designer, like I was a designer, quote unquote. And you would show them the fabrics and you would pick out the collars. You had the collars, you put them on them. I mean, it was a lot of design going on. If you could show that picture again,
yeah,
I think I can explain it a little better. Okay. Just for the viewer at home, there were all these different collars cut separately that you would try on the person. It wasn't specific. Wasn't specifically for size, but it was also for style.
Sure.
So if you look at the bottom part of a collar, that's called the band or the neck band. And that's an actual type of collar. It could be a Nehru collar. But if you look at the sides of the collar, the height on the extreme left where it says height, there's 4 heights. The band is the first height. There's a second height collar, a third height collar, and a fourth height collar. Okay. The fourth height collar is the highest. That's the most formal looking collar you could wear. The third height is usually what people want. The second height is like on a sports shirt, it's much lower. So the first height would really just be the band. So then you have the angle of the collar, and that's the angle where it says collar spread, if you see on the bottom.
Okay.
That could vary from a Billy Eckstine collar, which was just a straight V, straight down, to 5 degrees, 7 degrees, 9 degrees, or 11 degrees. This is about, I want to say about 7 here. A regular shirt is about 5 or 7. When you get into a W9, a 9 spread, that's a very formal looking collar. That's wide open. The 11 is really spread out, and that's, almost a tuxedo shirt, if you follow what I'm saying.
Would it also be related to like the neck size or tie size that somebody was going to be?
No, really not at all. Not at all. This has to do with the length of your neck, your age, and your appearance, and the style that you want to wear it for. If you have a real long neck, for instance, you want a higher collar to shorten the length of your neck so you don't look like a giraffe. Also, if you're older, you want a higher collar to cover up the wrinkles on your neck. So there's there's a lot of visual art and what I was studying at the time, when I was telling you before about optical illusions, these were all design optical illusions. That's why I was interested in it, but it was involving clothing. You know what I mean? These were optical illusions. In other words, if your collar was too tight, which most people were, because every 6 pounds you gain increases your collar size by a quarter size. So people have a collar size, they're in college, now they're 41 years old working at IBM, and they don't. Right. So, so the collar is super tight. The fat of your neck bulges over the sides of your collar, making you look even worse. So you have to have the proper size. And that's one thing. You know what I mean? But then
did it change according to fashion at all, or is it?
Nope. Had nothing to do with that. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. These are immemorial. They're evergreen. Yeah. So the tie space thing in the middle, like, I don't know, some sort of old wasps like to have tie space. It's like an old wasp kind of thing, that tie space there, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. But I never really liked that. And most people didn't like it, which you just wanted the points to touch up there. And the tie space always looked like it was too tight or something. Now, the angle of pointing downwards for a 5 or a 7 degree collar, if you had a round face, for instance, and this is obvious, you would want the collar to be pointing straight downward, a 5 or 7, because it lengthens your face.
Sure.
The same reverse, if you had a narrow face, you would want a spread collar because it would widen your face. So those are obvious. They even do those with sunglasses and eyeglasses. That's a typical visual trick. But the point length, usually about 3 inches, that really didn't vary that much, the actual length of it. But within there were pin collars, tab collars, button-down collars. There were hidden button-down collars. Like I'm wearing a hidden button-down collar right now. You see this? Mm-hmm. This is a hidden button-down collar. The buttons are on the inside, not on the outside. Sure. Okay, well, that's a certain thing you could order. That was discouraged, but you also had, the tie space and the pin that went through it. You ever see a collar with the pin that goes through it, Eric?
The tie pin thing.
Right. Okay. So that's a typical thing. Anyway, so they had a lot of choices on the collars for the most part. And that was how he really got you. And then there were two-tone shirts. You got into the cuffs. Yeah, these are types of shirt collars. Okay. Club. Yeah, I don't know what those mean there. Pin, but you see pinned, you see wingtip. You see a button down. The classic is a W7 up on top. The spread up on the upper left-hand corner looks like a W9. That angle there is about 9 degrees. So anyway, the neckband one, it says Mandarin there, but that's also a neckband collar.
Or Henley, I heard him called.
That's what it's called, really?
Well, Henley, if it only goes down part way. I guess if it's fully buttoned down, it's almost like a preacher collar in a weird way.
Anyway, so part of the problem was you had to memorize this dialogue for 6 months in the school. You know what I mean? Not only learn this, learn how to measure, learn about the cuffs. Like there's different kinds of cuffs. There's French cuffs. I don't know if I showed you a photo of some of the cuffs. Okay, so here on the cuffs, just to give you a quick look, see there are French cuffs that have rounded backs, and that allowed it to slide easier out of your jacket. And if you have the third one, the third one on the top is a traditional French cuff, the square, and that gets caught up on your jacket. So the round French, which is next to it, the one next to it, you see the rounded corner. That allows it to go in and out of your jacket easier. And then there's the one on the extreme right is a 2-button. Everybody knows that one. And you see the various things. These are also offered. Okay. Oh, we're done with the cuffs. So anyway, so he also made it a minimum. Oh, look at this. Interesting. Yeah, you want, just so you know, the length of your jacket should, I can't even believe I'm remembering this. This is 50 years.
It's a flashback.
This is insane. The length, I can't believe this. The length of your jacket should come into the middle of your thumb for people watching.
Oh, that's right. I think I heard that.
Okay. And the amount of linen that you show is probably about a ½ inch, the max, when your arm is down, half to 3/4 of an inch of linen at the cuff. And there shouldn't be any bulging on the back and blah, 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 these other things. But the reality of it is they were shirt makers. We sold blazers. We sold other things. We sold suits. Welcome, Knuckle Fist. You're going to learn a lot. Hang on, brother. So this store was next door to Harry Winston's on 5th Avenue, 57th Street. Now, look at it from my point of view. I am literally coming out of the woods like a wild animal. I have lived in the woods with an arts group, for 5 years. I've not been back in the city. And now, here is Harry Winston's. This is boarded up during the riots. Okay, the recent riots. This is not how it looks normally. This was because of Black Lives Matter trying to go shopping at Harry Winston's last year. And next door, it's a 3-building structure, is the custom shop. That was where I'm talking about right there. This is the southwest corner of 57th and 5th Avenue in a place called Manhattan. And for me, it was kind of cultural shock to go in there and do this. But nevertheless, the reason I went is I was waiting for a job to come my way at National Lampoon. So I thought, hey, how long could this take, right? I'll do this straight job until I get the Lampoon job. And it ended up taking 2 years. I had to work in this place, Eric, to do this. So as I was telling you yesterday, you went to this school for 6 months. And then when you graduated from the school, they sent you for your own store in places like Indianapolis and Bismarck, North Dakota, which I had no intention of going. And these kids going, I can't wait to get to Dallas and have my own store. I'm going like, dear God, I can't wait to get to Louisville, Kentucky, wherever that was, and have my own store. I'm like going, holy cap, these guys are crazy. So I had to make believe I was interested in having my own store to perpetuate this stall tactic until the phone rang for the Lampoon thing. So anyway, so Levitt kind of liked me, and I was like the teacher's pet. So people laid off of me. I knew Levitt. It's one of these deals where you know the owner, and you know what I mean, Eric? You know what I mean? You know the guy knows you. So people kind of laid off me. But yeah, there was his wife, Mimi. She was a doll. And I'll tell you something about Levitt. He was like Jack Benny. He was the cheapest guy on the face of the earth, but he gave tons of money to charity and the arts on the side. You know what I mean? Yeah, it was a Jack Benny routine, and I always appreciated that about Levitt. He was a little guy, and he had all these I think he knew what he was dealing with me, that he was taking me out of the wilderness, because he kept saying like, how do you live up here? What do you do? Like when I was in the mountains, he was like, he had a house up there. Obviously, he had a separate house, and I was living up there, and he's going, how can you make it? What is your future? There's nothing up here for you, because we were both Brooklyn Jews, to make a long story short. And
now, would that be nebbish?
Yeah, it was kind of nebbish. I mean, but he was just an unusually weird, unique, America's Untold Story kind of guy. I mean, a self-made man who created this custom shop out of thin air and opened them up across the country and tried to, kept it going successfully for so many years. I mean, 1937. I mean, it's insane that he had those stores downtown. But to make a long story short, they, finally allowed me to come into the store and do the stuff that they wanted me to do. That I got out of the school, learned the dialogue, and just to give you a sample of the dialogue, I don't know, maybe you'd be a customer. Like if you came in looking like that, okay,
kick me out.
Most of them are really well dressed coming in, the businessmen at lunch. You came in looking like that. And so here's what you'd say. Hi, welcome to the custom shop. It's obvious you're in show business. I just received a new shirt. Would you like to take a look at it? See, I would say you're obviously in show business. You could be a homeless guy coming in, and you'd say you're obviously in show business. As trying to not insult the guy, but say, look what you look like, sir.
You're so slovenly. You're in show business. No normal person would dress that way.
Right, exactly. And there were people in show business who did come in, with just a T-shirt, whatever. So anyway, so the dialogue that was created by Harvard, like I said, covered the second the guy walked in. It was psychological warfare. So you went up to the guy and said, "Welcome to the custom shop. Are you looking for anything special?" So nobody wants to have a guy on him. You just want to look around, right? Mm-hmm. So you just go, "No, I'm just going to browse." Well, you know what? Most men like to look around. Let me show you. That's why our ties are arranged this way. And dude, it was insane. And I just received a new silk shantung. Would you like to take a look at it? No, I'm good. I'll just say, well, it may interest you to know we make all our own shirts and ties in our own factory. I just received this new broadcloth Oxford shirt. Would you care to take a look at it? And the guy finally says, "All right, I'll take a look at it. Leave me alone." So then you're showing him the guy the stuff. And then it says you got a blue shirt, right? So you just go, if you like your blue shirt to look blue, your tie should have blue in it. So you take out a tie which has blue dots and you put it on the shirt, and it's an optical illusion. The shirt does look bluer. So now the guy's going, I never knew that before, right? And you're trying to convert him. They had ready-made shirts, right? Mm-hmm. The ready-made shirt business was not what they wanted to sell, right? They wanted to convert you from ready-made shirts to a custom shirt customer. That was the PSYOPs game, to trick you into saying, "Look at you, you freak. How could you wear a ready-made shirt? You need a custom-made shirt." And that was the flip. Because once they had you, their numbers indicated they had you for life. In other words, once you bought into the custom-made thing, you just reordered every 6 months or 4 months or whatever you wanted to do. And it went on for 25 years. They had files, like you had to go in the back and get Jerry Goldschmidt's file out of the file. And Jerry might have a file that's 16 inches thick from 1964, Eric. You know what I mean? Of every shirt the guy's ever ordered. And let me get your file. You bring it out and you go, you last order.
But that locks them in even more, though, because that
yes.
custom service,
yes.
It's a Cheers variant. Norm, in a weird way.
Right. So they would come back and of course, they would reorder again. And we had our share of celebrities, Eric, who would come in this place. And that's where I come in, because apparently nobody had an eye to see who these people were. And I would go, "Holy crap, that's so-and-so." They didn't care. Like I said, there was another store on 50th at Rockefeller Center, like I told you. Just down the street. And that was the passport office store. And the people who worked in that store were from every country on the earth. In other words, they staffed it with people from various countries, because the passport office in Rockefeller Center, where it was, by the way, incredible rooftop gardens on top of the 4th floor in Rockefeller Center. You could eat lunch up there. Absolutely wonderful. But inside Rockefeller Center was the passport office. So there was a lot of traffic of international people renewing or getting their passports. So in that store, each person who worked in that store, except for me, I guess I represented Brooklyn. Each person,
you were the mascot.
Each person represented a different country, right? But in the main store, which was 57th, they had a lot of different celebrities that were coming there. So you say, well, how busy could it be? So all kinds of weirdos came in there. One day we had, not one day, but a bunch of days, they kept coming in. Like Leona Helmsley would come in, the Queen of Mean, with Harry Helmsley, and she would order 100, dude, and she was mean. Let me tell you something. This woman got sent to prison. She couldn't have gotten there too soon, as far as I was concerned. She would schlep her husband, Harry Helmsley, who was a billionaire. They owned the Helmsley Plaza. And she would come in and order. She was possibly the harshest woman on the face of the earth. And I know there was others today. Harry, the poor guy, I felt sorry for this schlub, because she just dragged it. He was the sweetest guy in the world. So she would order 150 shirts. And then the thing is, they had to come into the store, Eric, to be remeasured. So you couldn't just order it on the phone. And that was part of Levitt's brilliance, because once he had you in the store, He could sell you 500 ties. He could sell you some other crap because the measurements changed.
Right.
And
So
they
you can't buy just one shirt. You got to buy a few because, I mean, obviously your measurement changed. So you can't just.
Well, the minimum order was 4.
Oh,
by the way.
There you go. Okay.
The minimum was 4. The price was based on the fabric. If you had some incredible Sea Island cotton or voile, which I don't recommend because it'll just shrivel up and melt in a humid. I don't even know why I remember this. It does me absolutely no good today, Eric. You know what I mean? But there are certain fabrics.
You're styling right now.
Yeah, okay, but I'm not doing what they're doing. But anyway, you know what? I still have some of the shirts. I'll tell you that much. You got my monogram right here on some of the shirts, or you can put it on your chest. People had different monograms. You could get that put on, but that was kind of fun. But anyway, so she would order a bunch of shirts. She left, blah, blah, blah. One day, who comes in? Jimmy Swaggart, the Right Reverend Jimmy Swaggart. And he orders a bunch of shirts. There he was. That's exactly how he looked when he came in that particular day.
He was stressed, obviously.
He was stressed out. He had sinned against the Lord. And he was ordering a bunch of shirts. And I was the only one who knew who he was. These people were not. Look, this was the early part of my pop culture career, but I was still able to pin these Forrest Gump like people when they came in. So I'm talking with Jimmy Swaggart, and I said, because I knew that his first cousin was Jerry Lee Lewis. I knew his other first cousin was the legendary Mickey Gilley out of Texas. And Jerry Lee had just gone into rehab for the 4 millionth time. So I said to him, what is going on with Jerry Lee? And I just like that, to have a conversation. And he raised his voice and he said, Mark, Jerry Lee has turned his back on the Lord and Satan has taken over his soul. I don't know if I can help or reach out to Jerry Lee. He may be in the hands of Satan. And everybody's looking around because he's now preaching about his cousin, Jerry Lee Lewis. I said, all right, just keep it down. So he orders like 100 shirts. Oh, Jimmy wow. Swag. What's that?
I said, wow.
Yeah, no, he ordered like 100 shirts. And I said, all right, this is great. Just give me your name and address. He was a first-time customer. That's right. He hadn't been in before. So I had to get his address to mail the shirts to where he lives. So he says, just put Reverend Jimmy Swaggart, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I said, okay, what about street? He goes, Jimmy Swaggart, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He says it 5 times. And I go, all right, whatever, bro. So I go downstairs. The manager says, who is this guy? I said, he's some guy from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He's a famous reverend. He goes, I don't care who he is. Just get his goddamn address. Because the shirts got shipped out of Jersey. They didn't know it was Jimmy Swaggart. I go back upstairs. He won't do it, Eric. He wouldn't give me the street address, or maybe he didn't have one. I never knew to this day.
I don't think he needed one. I have a funny feeling I agree where to find him.
Right. First of all, I agreed with him because I knew who he was. I did not argue with him. I was arguing with my manager of the store. And I said, look, it's probably going to work, Jerry, one way or the other. Who cares? Well, you got the money, right? But anyway, he never gave an address. It went through, of course, to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But here's the funny part. Across the street was Bijan, which is another clothing place. And they had made a custom-made bulletproof raincoat for Ronald Reagan after he was shot by Hinckley, right? Mm. And Bijan was very expensive. So Jimmy Swaggart says, after I'm done here, I'm going to go across the street and get me one of them bulletproof raincoats, just like Ronald Reagan has, because my flock deserves that I be protected, just like Ronald Reagan's flock feels that he should be protected. Don't you agree, Mark? I said, I couldn't agree more, Reverend. And he went across the street. He had a Rolls Royce too, and he drove literally across the street. He had a driver, went right across the street to Bijan and got his bulletproof raincoat. So I thought that was an interesting, typical customer, of what was going on. Now, we also had sports guys coming in because they were freaky, lengths, like Bill Cartwright from the Knicks, and Jerry Royce came in from the Dodgers. That was the only guy I ever cared about was Jerry Royce, the pitcher for the Dodgers, coming in, who sent me an autographed picture of himself. Nobody ever did that. I never asked for anybody to do that, and it was a great day for me personally to have Jerry Royce come in as a Dodger. But Tim McCarver. But one of the best ones we used to have all the time was a guy named Nixon. So this guy, President Nixon, used to come into the his office was right over there. He used to come into the Rockefeller. Yeah, there he is. This was his office was pretty close by. So he used to come into the store at Rockefeller Center, which was the international store. And once, after a while of talking to Nixon, because I waited on him a number of times, he used to come in with this little French bodyguard who everyone says could kill you with one karate chop. I don't know. He just had the one little French guy all the time. He never had any security, no Secret Service. This was a personal. Yeah, no, it was just this French guy. It was kind of weird. So he would come in with a French guy, and the French guy apparently could kill you. Anyway.
That makes me think of Rupert Murdoch, his wife. Apparently she was like so martial arts oriented that, and actually did beat somebody up.
Okay, well, I never saw the French guy in action, but I did see Nixon in action. And Nixon had a photographic memory. And that was, I realized quickly what this guy was made of. His one superpower that he had was a photographic memory. And he would go up to each person in the store. There was a woman named Claude who was from France. There was a little guy named Guy who was from Bogota, Colombia. There was a guy named Mordecai who was from Israel, from Tel Aviv. And he would talk to them about meeting with their leaders at such and such a time, at such and such a restaurant, at such and such a place, that it was breathtaking. And he would pick up with them from the last conversation, which may have been 6 months before, and he would go, Claude, I remember eating with de Gaulle in a little tiny restaurant in the Marais. I had snails and de Gaulle had shrimp. I recommended against the shrimp, but de Gaulle ate it anyway. And then he started choking. So I got him in a Heimlich maneuver, and he started really to choke up a shrimp. And I'm going like, this guy's a mad genius. I couldn't believe it. I hope Laura likes it. But so I realized quickly that Nixon, the reason he was so famous was he was able to do this. This guy had bullshit that didn't quit with photographic memory bullshit. And he would go to Guy. And, I was in Bogota and the generals had just had a coup d'etat. I wasn't in support of the coup, Guy, but I was there at the time. And you just go, oh my God, this is, and nobody even, anyway, make a long story short, Hasidic guy with long payas and a fur hat was in the store buying what they called white on whites. We had a sale every year of the white on whites. Do you know what a white on white is? It's a dress shirt that the Hasidim wear that has white ribbons on top of white cotton fabric. And it's a dressier dress shirt. It's the only shirts they wear. And they would stick their heads in the store asking us if the sale had started yet. Throughout the year, go, white on whites yet? And they go, no, not yet. They'd go, thank you. And they would come back. There'd be a week when they'd blow out these white on whites and the Hasidim would pour in. Anyway, so this guy was early. He was looking around. He didn't want to buy anything. They'll buy nothing other than these half off white on whites. So he sees Nixon, right? And he goes up to him from behind. I went, oh my, the French guy may go into action here. And he taps him on the shoulder. And Nixon turns around. And he goes, yes. And the guy goes, Mr. Nixon? And he goes, yes. He goes, just checking. And he walks out. That was his dialogue with Richard Nixon, the president. Just checking. Anyway, so he splits. Nixon splits, right? And who comes in after Nixon, right? All of a sudden, 4 guys come in. They're drunk. And it's Richard Dreyfuss with his agents from William Morris, right? And I pin Dreyfuss. Dreyfuss comes in. He's out of his mind. He looked like that. Yeah, but he might have been on coke too at the time. I'm not really sure. But it was like, I want to say it was August 27th in the most humid week of the city that, of that time. It was so humid, it was ridiculous. Nixon leaves. Dreyfuss comes in. I pin Dreyfuss. Nobody recognizes him. And I go, you'll never guess who just left, right? And he goes, who? And I said, Nixon. And he goes, which way did he go? And I said, he went up Fifth Avenue. And he bolts out the door, running up Fifth Avenue to chase after Nixon and catch him for some reason. I don't know what he's going to do with him when he catches him, but he leaves me with his 3 William Morris agents. And I'm going like, what's with Dreyfuss? They go, dude, he hates Nixon. If he gets Nixon, it's all over. I go, what?
The French guy's there. No.
Right. The French guy was with him, right? So I'm standing there with these 3 drunk William Morris agents for 20 minutes. and no Richard Dreyfuss. And finally he comes in completely drenched in sweat, completely out of breath. He can't even catch his breath. When he finally does, he just goes, the son of a bitch got away. Cut to 20 years later. 20 years later, I have a meeting with Richard Dreyfuss on this Jonas Salk project, which we're going to explore as a show, where he's supposed to play Jonas Salk. And he says to me, I tell him the same story. He goes, I don't remember any of that. So I tell him what I just said 20 years later. And he says, look, Mark, I don't want to play Jonas Salk. I want to be Albert Sabin. And I said, well, Richard, Albert Sabin's a bad guy. He goes, yeah, I want to be a bad guy. I'm sick and tired of being the good guy. I go, Richard, I can't raise money for the movie if you're Albert Sabin. It's a Jonas Salk story. And he goes, Mark, let me tell you something. When I come on a picture, I come on a project, I'm in 100%. 100%. If you give me this part of Albert Sabin, I guarantee you every waking minute I'll get, and the door opens, and a 6-foot-tall Russian supermodel comes in and says, are we going to lunch or what, Richard? And he says, got to go, Mark. Good luck with the project. And he runs out the door with the Russian supermodel. Never saw him again. I never saw him in the rest of my life.
100%.
Yeah, he's 100% involved in the project, unless Vladislav comes in the door and says, we have to go to lunch. And then
priorities.
He had priorities. But anyway, let me digress, because he never got to Nixon. And I don't know if he bought shirts or he didn't buy shirts. But the point of the matter was, a lot of weird people came in that store. And one time, this was also, I think in September, the other store, Paramount Pictures came in and talked to me. Why me? I don't know. But I guess I was there. They're making a movie, and I don't want to give away the movie yet, but they said, we're going up and down the street because we'd like the stores to appear to be open at night. It's supposed to be Christmas. Now, this is, I want to say September, right? And still really hot and everything. And it's supposed to be Christmas shopping. And we were wondering if you could keep the store open. And I said, all right, let me talk to the management. I don't know. So I talked to the management, and they go, yeah, okay, we'll do it. The other stores are doing it too, blah, blah, blah. And you could I could stay at night. There's a night shoot, and keep the store open. Just stay in the store. We'll pay you for being there. I go, oh, that's interesting. Okay, great. So I go, okay, I'll do that. So then comes all the time for the movie, and trucks are rolling in. It's a huge, huge Hollywood movie. I mean, big. And I go, holy cow, this is huge. And I go outside the store, and there's hundreds and hundreds of extras in coats and winter shopping, and they have phony snow making machines. And there's just an industry going on outside the store. And this is going on for hours. So I see a couple of friends of mine who are extras, who are actors, stage actors. And they go, come on, Mark, you could be an extra. I go, nah, look, I'm running the store. I'm getting paid. And they go, no, come on. So they bring me in. They just take me over to the AD. Next thing you know, now I'm an extra in the movie. I'm in the movie, right? So the guy I know says, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk down the street, and we're going to put our arms around each other like we're drunken carolers. And I go, is this in the movie, Mike? And he goes, don't worry about it. I've been in movies my whole life. So he says, we'll act like we're drunk. We'll put our arms around each other, and we'll sway back and forth on the street. And that way we'll be able to see ourselves in the film. I said, I don't know. I've never been in a film before. That sounds logical. So they roll camera. There's hundreds and hundreds of extras walking down the street on Fifth Avenue. And the four of us lock arms, and we start swaying and like drunk carolers. And the AD goes, stop. All right, okay, you four, come here. And he fires the three of them, and he takes me, and I go, oh my God, I've been in the movie business. I've been in the movie business now 5 minutes, Eric. I'm already on some blacklist. You know what I mean? These three guys get fired. He takes me, and he says, all right, you. And I go, oh, he's going to single me out for personal retribution for fucking up this film. And he says, all right, here's what I want you to do. There's a guy who's going to come out of Rizzoli bookstore in a couple minutes with packages. And I want you to put your right shoulder into his right shoulder, knock him down, and he's going to drop the packages. And I go, all right, I could do that. He goes, we're going to shoot it a bunch of different ways. So don't worry, it's not going to be one time. We're going to shoot it and get some coverage on. I go, oh, yeah, coverage. So
that's coverage.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Again, this is 1980. I want to say 1983. Okay. And so the guy comes out of the bookstore. There's cranes, there's tracks, there's people, action, the whole thing. Guy comes out of the bookstore, Rizzoli's, which is a huge bookstore on Fifth Avenue. At least it was until maybe Black Lives Matter burned it down. I'm not sure. But he comes out of Rizzoli carrying all this stuff. And I go, I got to put my right shoulder into this guy's right shoulder, right? I'm going to walk briskly. I could do this, right? And it's the plot twist is it's Robert De Niro, right? So I walk and I knock into Robert De Niro, and I'm just like in shock going, I can't believe I'm banging into Robert De Niro. We did this, I want to say 17 times. At times my head hit Robert De Niro's head. At times my chin hit his face. At times my hands went into under his coat by accident. I mean, there was so much confusion with me banging into Robert De Niro. He never said a word to me. I just kept saying under my breath, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean I'm sorry. And finally, I think they just told me to shut the fuck up and just bang into the guy, right? So I do this thing and the whole scene, I don't know what happened to the scene, if it got cut out of the movie or not, but they finally break for dinner, right? And boy, did I need a break. So I sit down at this table on the street, and this long table with people eating, and there's an empty seat next to me. I'm not paying attention. I can't believe how good the food is. I'm like in shock that I'm now, not only am I
welcome to craft services.
Right. Not only am I starring in the movie, Robert De Niro, I've got the store I got to worry about. I'm getting paid for that. I'm getting paid as an extra. And now I'm getting this free tenderloin steak dinner. And there's a seat next to me, and a woman says, you mind if I sit down next to you? And I look up, and it's Meryl Streep. And I go, do I mind? What do you? I said, I worship you. And she sits down and has dinner with me, Meryl Streep. And I just thought I died and went to heaven, Eric. I mean, it was like the greatest night of my life. So I had dinner with Meryl Streep. I don't want to discuss what we said, but we did. I don't know if she just wanted the empty seat. She was attracted to me. She wanted the steak dinner. I'm not really sure to this day. However, I did have a good time eating dinner with Meryl Streep. That's all I can tell you. And I did get paid. And here's a picture of the poster. That's her with Robert De Niro. They ended up cutting me out of the movie completely. So don't bother even looking. I've looked 100 times. I've never been able to find out where that scene was. Although he does come out of Rizzoli's. I mean, that scene's still there.
But there's good news.
Okay. This is a check I got. The first check I ever got in show business. And that was a check for Paramount Pictures for that. And I still have a copy of which you see here, $80. Could they afford it? It was an $80 million movie, and they paid me $80. But
you got a salary from the store too, double dipping.
Yeah, it was double dipping. Yeah, I got paid by the store too. And I'll tell you, there was a bonus round. I'll tell you what happened. There was a young, cute extra I was working with, and I don't want to say this in the wrong way, but we ended up going into my store and my office on the third floor and having a lot of fun on the desk of Mortimer Levitt. As things would have it, I said, I happen to have an office right here. I mean, obviously she knew I was kidding, but I opened the door. We went in the private elevator up to the third floor. It was a three-story building. The top floor was Levitt's office. And anyway, so we used his desk as a prop is all I wanted to say for that particular story. But the story itself,
Mark Groubert.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a pretty good movie, Falling in Love. I don't know if you ever saw it, but I'd recommend the movie unless you hate Robert De Niro so badly at this time that you can't stomach watching him. Now, you could say, well, what's wrong with Robert De Niro? Why would you say anything about it? Well, if you read his divorce papers, the lawsuit, Eric, which I know you like reading these lawsuit papers.
Sure.
He is what's known as a coprophage, and a coprophage is someone. This is with his wife. I mean, this is his wife saying this. That after they had sex, he would order her to defecate on his chest. This is in the divorce papers. So I just want you to understand what kind of man this is who criticized Donald Trump all those years. This is a man who has his own wife defecate on his chest after having sex with her. And the only reason I know that is that it's public record, and you could look that up if you want in the divorce.
I'm good.
You're good. You don't really care. I feel bad because I banged into him 22 times on the street, and I could have dealt with him at that time, but I didn't. You know what I mean? But great actor, and then he lost his mind, I guess, somehow over Trump. I'm not really sure what happened to the guy. But anyway, at the end of the day, after I did all this stuff, the phone eventually rang. And that was the phone that my job was ready at National Lampoon in 1985. And I was able to leave the custom shop and begin the career of leaving this straight job and being an editor at National Lampoon. Who got fired and the Saturday Night Massacre is a subject of another story of how I got in there. And there's some dispute as to who were there and who wasn't before me. I mean, I know who was there. Raging Bull, of course. You know, I mean, you could learn everything about life in general by watching Raging Bull. You could learn, there's so much information in Raging Bull about life itself that I recommend every single person watch Raging Bull, and that's men and women combined. There's so much in there because at the end of the day, let's face it, you're either in the gym or the other joint. There's only two places, and we go around for years going, where's the other joint? Like Pesci says, I'll be at the gym or the other joint. And we never could figure out where the other joint was, right? Cut to Mary Lou's. And I was in Mary Lou's, which is a bar we hung out in Greenwich Village. And who's at the bar? Joe Pesci. So he's with two girls, two film students that he was having acting lessons with, Joe Pesci. And he told me that him and Vincent had a rock band together, and they auditioned for Scorsese, Billy Batts. Billy Batts and him were not only a comedy duo, but was a drummer, singer combo in a rock band, grew up together. And he auditioned, and Scorsese liked the fact that they were able to improvise together because they've been friends for so long, that he used them again in Goodfellas and obviously in Raging Bull. But you know, when he says the stuff, I'll be at the gym or the other joint, we could never figure out what the other joint was. So I asked Pesci about it, and he said he didn't know where the other joint was either. So make a long story short, he was very gracious. Let me put it that way. He was very gracious because everybody in the bar were doing lines from. Well, we're doing lines, but I mean lines from the movie, and Pesci just took it with a lot of grace. That's all I could say. There was a lot of bad Joe Pesci imitators in the bar that night, you know, and there was a bathroom in Mary Lou's where people went to do things privately, and it was a tiny little bathroom. And when I was a kid, and I think it was in 5th grade, I had an art teacher named Miss Green. She was a doll, absolutely gorgeous. And one day, this guy comes in and he's dating her, and I was crushed that a guy was dating the art teacher that I was madly in love with, and that was Rod Gilbert, the New York Rangers star player. And I hated Rod Gilbert for the rest of my life because of that. And one night in Mary Lou's, everybody was forcing their way into the bathroom. There's a knock on the door, and we were doing things in the bathroom you shouldn't be doing. And the door, I opened the door, and lo and behold, it's Rod Gilbert. And he said, "I'm Rod Gilbert. You got to let me in." I said, "Take it up with my art teacher, Miss Green. You should have thought of that back then." I closed the door. I closed the door in Rod Gilbert's face, and we proceeded to do what we were doing without Rod Gilbert in Mary Lou's bathroom.
And I'm guessing you were probably pretty high at the time.
Oh, yes, we were high. Absolutely. There was a lot of people. It was it was so funny because one time it was a mob joint. Tommy Barada ran the place. He was friends with Jack Nicholson and Mary Lou Barada. It was a Gambino mob place on 9th Street in the Village. And they let us do a lot of amazing things in there for reasons that are beyond me why she put up with us. But we were in there in the afternoon one time, and they used to have a regular lunch clientele, and we were doing something, and we were doing illegal substances in the bathroom. And she came banging on the door saying, "Mark, Michael," she named all our names. "You got to come out of there. You can't do stuff like that in the middle of the day." And we had to open the door sheepishly and realize it was 2:00 in the afternoon. We were there for some other function. But, you know, when they were making Prizzi's Honor, Nicholson showed up the entire summer and learned how to speak like a mobster by having Tommy Barada take him out to the Gambino crime family, sit-down meeting of the crime families out on Long Island. And they didn't even know who Nicholson was. And he was working on a movie called Prizzi's Honor at the time. Mm-hmm. And Tommy Barada and him were close friends. Barada was a great chef and was, you know, ran a legitimate restaurant, which was this one. And he took him out to the sit down, and it was the most exciting thing Nicholson had ever been through in his life, and he didn't want to leave. And finally, they said, "You got to get him out of here. We got some other business we have to talk about. We don't want this guy here." So Barada had to, extricate Nicholson from the meeting and take him out. But if you watch Prizzi's Honor, he's actually doing an imitation of Tommy Barada, which is kind of funny. And then Barada has a cameo in the movie as Tommasino Barada, the famous opera singer from Italy, of all things. And then they overdubbed his aria, which is kind of funny. But Nicholson learned everything about the mob that summer from Tommy Barada and going to those Gambino crime family meetings out in Long Island, where Gambino had a house, Massapequa, right on the water there.
Crazy.
If that makes any sense to you.
All right. So are we going to be doing a National Lampoon next?
Well, it may tie in because remember, we got to do the toga party thing.
Mm-hmm.
The toga party thing is through National Lampoon because I was contacted by Tulane and Loyola University to come down to New Orleans to do the world's largest toga party. So when we do that episode, I think that'll cover Lampoon per se. You know what I mean? Because that was a Lampoon event. And it was indeed the world's largest toga party. The Guinness Book of World Records was there at the time. And it did get out of hand. I could say it did get a little crazy. And I'll try to dig up some memories of that if I'm still alive by the time. When is that show? March 1st or something?
Early March.
Oh, okay. So whenever Mardi Gras or Fat Tuesday is, we'll do that, right?
Yep. March 1st, literally. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if there's any Tulane people, Loyola people there who are watching the show, they're going to love this. And whatever that radio station, whoever the Howard Stern was of New Orleans at the time, I apologize for taking over your studio and throwing you out and having the state police show up and breaking down the door. I really have to apologize. We went overboard there a little bit. Yeah, that was a little crazy.
But you got the key.
Yeah, but I did get the key to the city, which is over my right shoulder in that frame across from Dylan, and that's from the mayor, who I think was the first African American mayor of New Orleans, Sidney Bartholomew. He gave me that key, and there's a great story behind getting the key at a party outside. Whatever happened. That's all I can say, folks. I don't apologize.
You'll share what you remember.
I'll just say Otis Day and the Knights were deeply involved in this story. And Otis, my man, really helped me that day.
Okay. Dan Davis wants to know if we're going to cover Gary Webb, I think.
It's already been covered. It's already
probably not, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, it's so funny because the movie, the Jeremy Renner movie, what was that? Kill the Messenger. Kill the Messenger was directed by a kind of a known spook director, a spook operative director who also directed Parkland, which is kind of interesting that guy was involved. The CIA guy was involved in making Kill the Messenger.
You know what surprised me? This is a complete tangent, but I interviewed Mike Levine, and Mike Levine is very much involved in exposing the CIA. He was on with Gary Webb on Montel Williams, all of that. He's saying that no, he didn't think the CIA did it. He legitimately.
I don't think so either. I never thought so either. Believe me, I'll be the first one to finger them, but I never saw the fingerprints of it. Really, that they did it.
Yeah, he was saying that the CIA already did all they needed. That the guy's life had been completely destroyed. His career was trashed.
Right. That was my impression. That was my impression. Yeah, I never believed in other words, I never believed the massive cocaine movement of the CIA hooking everyone in Watts. I never bought into that story. That would be a full-time job. That would involve so much. They didn't need the money. They had an unlimited black budget, which they still do, which we're going to find out was overseen by the Senate Majority Leader named Lyndon Johnson. They didn't need the money from selling cocaine. The idea that they would wake up one day and get into the nonstop. If you think about the cocaine business, the reason the story is so preposterous, I could see them doing it, making some drug deals for what purpose? Obviously to entrap someone, but to make money, they didn't need the money. They had unlimited money. If you get into the cocaine business, you have to be in the cocaine business 365 days a year, Eric. You can't just dabble in it and say, oh, by the way, we're not in the cocaine business anymore. The idea that there was a CIA division that ran the cocaine business 365 days a year is a bit of a stretch for me personally. It's a bit of a stretch.
I'm sure they did facilitate, and I'm sure they did protect their informants, which are famous.
Right. Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
And they were probably just running the coke. So I know they were tangentially tied, but not necessarily.
Yes. The idea of them airlifting in hundreds of millions of kilos and dropping them into urban areas is insane. It's just some conspiracy crazy crap. They had, informants that I'm sure they gave coke to and used coke as bribes, and like any other cop would. You know what I mean? They probably had.
And by the way, we're not saying that it was definitely suicide. We're saying that we don't think the CIA necessarily did it. Somebody else could well have done that.
Right. Right.
I mean, it does look suspicious. Most people don't do a double tap when they shoot themselves.
Well, don't forget, we've got the double tap to the heart of Elliott Smith.
Eventually,
but Elliott Smith stabbing himself twice in the heart.
Yeah, we have to get that. We got to get that one done. Well, we're still being asked about that.
I know. We got to finish some of these. We got to tie up some loose ends, bro.
Maybe. Well, talk to your friend, man. I don't know if Friday's too soon, but that could be a consideration.
You could do that.
Yeah, let's see. Well, we can't promise.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that he stabbed himself twice in the heart, and some people
both
say
fatal.
Both fatal. Elliott Smith, right over here in Silver Lake, and maybe there was rumors that he owed money to the drug dealers and that they were circulating around, and they may have killed him. It might have been Jenny Chiba. It might have been Jenny Chiba's lover while she watched. You know what I mean? It might have been.
Or what she hid. I mean, we won't go into it, but it could be the whole I don't know what's going on.
Right. It could be some double indemnity thing. With Barbara Stanwyck and Fred McMurray, where they I never really threw this one out the window, because if they wanted his publishing and she sued for the publishing after his demise and lost the case, her and the balls of his ass drummer were being abandoned by him to go to Europe. It might have been one of those double indemnity things, where they wanted his publishing. And she couldn't kill him, but it was a plot where she got the lover to kill him.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, we'll explore this with your friend Allison at some point.
Right.
Definitely.
Right. So we got that. And what are you going to say? You wanted to mention something that they could subscribe to the show at some point.
Yes, of course. Local.
By the way, this thing's going through the roof. This show, from what you're telling me, people like this thing. We're getting a lot of subscribers.
Allegedly. No, we are getting a lot of.
Let me know when we get so big that they're going to come after me, because they're not going to come after you. They're going to come after me. They're going to say this guy's a fraud. He made it up. They're going to say whatever they're going to say about me.
You know the story about the bear, right?
No.
Okay. Well, I don't have to be faster than a bear. I just have to be faster than you.
Right. Okay. Because they'll eat me and then you'll escape. Oh yeah, I do know that story. As a matter of fact. So you're saying that people can subscribe whenever they want, but now would be a good time.
On structured.locals.com, we're putting stuff up there like scripts that you don't get anywhere else.
Oh yeah, the Sonora House script is up there, by the way. The one I wrote about the movie. Obviously, it's fictionalized to some degree. It's not a documentary, but all the characters are in there. The basic stories there. If you want to read it, I think you have to become a member, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one of the.
You can follow for free. There is free stuff, and a community can read different things. And then we put up stuff that's for supporting members only as well.
Right.
We just redid the artwork, actually. I did this weekend, and then they tweaked it out, so it's more obvious that it's Mark and me for everyone who wants to check it out. But that's the primary.
Did you put up the LBJ script? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did you put up the LBJ?
It's there.
Okay. That's part one of the LBJ miniseries, right? That's
yes, it is. And by the way, just search. There is a search function to search for LBJ. Criticism of locals. I wish I could have a playlist or some sort of list to say, here's all the PDFs, and it'd be easier. But we're limited within the framework that they have. So if you search LBJ, there's only like 2 or 3 posts that have LBJ in the title. One of them is the PDF script.
Oh, okay. I put up a lot of souvenir stuff from Sonora House from the days, flyers and photos and pamphlets and show cards and things like that I have, which people can look at and see that I didn't make up the entire crazy story. What is it? I wonder how many subscribers. Well,
hopefully many.
Who cares as long as they pay?
Exactly. And any CIA here, please give super chats. I appreciate it.
Thank you, CIA.
Pay for the admission.
right? They're kind of double dipping because they're using our tax dollars anyway in that black box, budget that nobody's allowed to
It's
see.
like a refund. And besides, we'll get
The
taxed
tax
anyway.
refund. The tax refund.
We'll just forever cycle it through. Oh, we also have merch. Look down.
Oh, I forgot about the merch. Yeah. I need some merch for myself. I'm going to have to send you an email. Can you send me some? How do I get it?
Oh,
what do you have there?
I have more merch. I ordered a cup. This is
a cup?
A camper cup or whatever.
Oh, wow. I could use what is there a hole in the top? What's on the top? Oh, it's empty. Okay, right. I thought you put a straw in it. For a straw. And then they have a winter hat. It's not the thickest winter hat. I call it more of a fall hat, depending on what you are. Could be winter in LA. Right. But what about, there's a baseball hat and there's a couple of sweatshirts you're saying? Yes, there's sweatshirts, baseball hat, tote bag. I think if you can dig in and get a lot of other things too, like mouse pad, laptop, case, all kinds of stuff. It really is. It's all there. It's all underneath. You can click and you can just keep digging in anything you want. Now, these people, if they felt generous, they could PayPal me for my trip to find the Mothman, right? Sure. Okay, because I have to go to find the Mothman, as you're well aware, President's Weekend in Morgantown, West Virginia. Apparently, that was the last sighting of the Mothman, and I'm in the hunt for the Mothman. So I will be doing a remote with you at that point, at some point in that trip, to see if we could find the Mothman, or at least his last sighting. Because they could just send money on general principle. We'll take anything. Right. No, but I'm just saying, if you want to earmark it for tax purposes, you could put book fund, you could put searching for the Mothman. I think the IRS would like that on PayPal. Look at this one, Bob. Here's a woman paying a guy to look for the Mothman. She wants a tax deduction. That might be funny. And there's some other links down there too. Yeah, right? Good point. I hope we don't find them. I hope we don't find them either. Yeah, I'm looking, but I'll look as hard as I can. I mean, I've done the same thing with JFK, and I never really, got any credit for the work. But at least I'll get to the bottom of what people think about the Mothman. Oh, somebody's asking about Bat Boy is going to be after National Lampoon, because you. Let me just say something about Bat Boy, because when I came on to do Bat Boy, there's a long history of Bat Boy, but I came on, and the Bat Boy that I dealt with, the storyline that I wrote about was, and I don't know if you like this or not, but my Bat Boy for the Weekly World News, I had him searching in the caves in Tora Bora for bin Laden, because there was a time remember when bin Laden was hiding in caves? So I took the storyline into Bat Boy was working with the U.S. military to find bin Laden. I just remembered this. I completely forgot this. This was like 2002. Is that or three? Three, maybe. Yeah. It's as real as the story. Anyway, never mind. Anyway, my Bat Boy was a good Bat Boy, and he. Well, we also have to cover the whole anthrax. Oh yeah. They got you the job, so that may all kind of roll together. David Pecker. David Pecker was my boss. Yep. Yeah, Pecker was my boss, and anthrax was my excuse. That's how I got in there. No, that's not why I got in there. When I got there, the anthrax attack had just happened, so it had nothing to do with me personally, except I was there moments after it happened. Apparently, I'm everywhere, so I don't know. I end up in these weird historical moments. I know Johnny Anonymous is very annoyed with you. This guy hates my guts. Whoever Johnny Anonymous is, he thinks I'm making all this stuff up, and I just kept saying, "Yep, the guy's a complete fraud. You're onto him, bro." I spend all day coming up with these stories. I could barely remember them, but luckily, I've got some memorabilia to go with these crazy stories, like the Sonora House thing, and the whole national. I got a lot of custom-made shirts. I got custom-made shirts left over from the custom job, but I guess I could have bought those on my own. And the Weekly World News, there are photos of me in the Weekly World News, and some bylines. But anyway, I hope the show was enjoyable to some people. I don't know how we got down this rabbit hole, except that it was right after Sonora House. So I told Eric about it, and he thought it would make a good show because we had just finished, right? Essentially, yeah, we don't have, and it's kind of a bridge between the upstate stories of Sonora House and National Lampoon. There's like a gap well, there was a gap. Now there's no gap between the stories, and that's what I did. That was my.
Well, and it's also, this is the formula for the show in a way. It's okay. First, it's not the Baldwin show, but we'll have things like LBJ, which is a serious, heavy topic for time. But then we have offbeat, kind of off kilter stories. Or
well, they're all American stories. I mean, I do want to get into, like we said, we'll do the individual characters. Jack
Buckley.
Oh yeah, no, Lenny Bruce, Lord Buckley, Abby Hoffman, Dylan. I mean, we're going to do all of them as individual shows, without a doubt. But they're like evergreen. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
We can do them.
All of this is, but
except the Baldwin is not evergreen, because this mutt won't go away.
It's ever going. It's not evergreen. It's ever going.
Right. When we're done with this mutt, we'll have more free time to do the other things, in my humble opinion. But
all right. Well, until next time, be it Friday or Tuesday, we'll figure out how it goes. Comment below whatever you guys think, whatever you want. Unstructured.locals.com. Hope to see you there. And until next time.
Thank you.
See you.